I really want to talk about how important TRiO programs is to me, particularly the time that I spent in Upward Bound at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And then I want to talk about my journey and why Terry said I ended up on my back and how Upward Bound has instilled in me the qualities that I needed to succeed and move forward. And then thirdly, I just want to talk about what I've done to become successful and to overcome the obstacles that I've overcome. I was a part of Upward Bound from 1984 to 1988, giving my age there. I really enjoyed being in the program. Being a first generation person to go to school, myself and my sister, it was very important living in a lower income community that we not be influenced by some of the negative aspects of our community. So, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can connect to this. While we were going to school during the week, regularly, and then going to school on the weekends at Upward Bound, and then going to school throughout the summers, Upward Bound, people in our neighborhood would look at us and they would go, why are you always in school? And we couldn't really say, we just knew that it was just the right thing to do. What was so important to us is that our family, my mother, my father, who were very inspirational in our lives, might not have had the resources themselves to help us to accomplish and achieve and to make it through school. However, they knew to get us into Upward Bound, they knew to keep us out of the streets and to keep us away from the negative influences. And that's exactly what they did. So thank God, my mother was good friends with Teresa Powell. And Teresa Powell, we connected with her and told her about Upward Bound, and the first thing she did was put us in that program. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We were exposed to many things in Upward Bound. We were exposed to cultural activities at Ravinia, places that we probably never would have been exposed to. We were being exposed to something better than what we knew, or what we came from. And that was a wonderful experience. Not only that, while I was at Upward Bound, I was selected as the president of the senior class. I was selected to go to the presidential classroom in Washington, D.C. for a week, and even missed my cheerleading finals because I was in Washington, D.C. But it was for a wonderful exposure to Congress and just being around individuals that were going to succeed. And all of this was a great, great thing for us. Because little did I know that I was going to need that foundation. Little did I know that I was going to be faced with something that was pretty remarkable. And that I was going to need that foundation of working hard, of going above and beyond, and making education a priority so that I can go and I can succeed. When I went away to college, and I must also attribute that to some more TRiO services, because I was first in the way to college by Ada S. and Kelli, Silas Parnell, and so this is how TRiO permeated throughout our household. And then also to mention, not only was my sister involved in Upward Bound, and not only was I involved in Upward Bound, but my best friend, who was hanging around us all the time, became involved in Upward Bound too. Because my mother said, well, if you're gonna hang, you gotta go where they're going. And yes, she did. And not only did that help her get into college, but now Tawanda Washington is an area vice president for AT&T. So that's how TRiO works. But when I went away to school, I had a car accident. I was driving on the road, I was on my own, and I fell asleep at the wheel and caused a 5-car pileup. and I was in a coma for over 3 weeks. The doctors told my family, my sister actually got the call that I was in a coma, and they didn't know if I was going to live or die. And right away, my mom flew to the city where I was. And for 2.5, almost 3 weeks, they agonized because they didn't know what was going to happen. But slowly but surely, through the grace of God, I started to get better and I started to emerge from my coma. I went through over 6 months of arduous hospital care. 3 to 4 months inpatient rehab. 2 months of community integration in an outpatient center 5 days a week. I started off not being able to walk, not being able to talk, and not being able to read over first grade reading level. I didn't know, I was unaware of who my parents were or where I was. But I can tell you one thing I did remember. In the early days after I emerged from my coma, I remember seeing Teresa Powell standing in front of me in the door of my hospital room. And she gave me a book, a Richard Wright book, that she wanted me to read. And it wasn't until 2 to 3 years later that I was able to pick that book up and read it. But just to know that she was there for me and encouraging me to do what she knew, what she was all about, education. So when I thought about that, and I think about, that's when I started on my journey to come back to where I could be able to read, where I could be able to write, where I could be able to think. Imagine somebody who went through college, that had 2 years in college, and to know that now I can't even create a sentence. I couldn't even add 2 numbers together. That was really heartbreaking. And it was a very, very tumultuous journey that I had to ride. But when I look up and I think about people like Teresa, who was there at my side, encouraging me, edging me, even though she was unaware that wasn't possible for me to even do that at that time. She had faith that I was going to be able to make it and to get to that level. With the help of that framework, that foundation that I had acquired when I was in Upward Bound, I'd be able to begin that journey. I got back on that road to taking pre-remedial courses. It was very, very tedious and very, very hard on my ego. But I had to do that. I had to start from the beginning so that I can go and reach it again. And with the help of the foundation that I built while I was in Upward Bound, and with the support of my sister and my mother, I was able to forge ahead. Broken but not unbound. I had lost my scholarship in ROTC. I was medically discharged from the U.S. Army Reserve, which I had joined after I had spent 1 year in college for the GI Bill. And I could no longer return back to Florida A&M University because I couldn't make it. I could not live on my own. So I returned home and I refused to enroll at a community college. I enrolled at Chicago State University. And I took 1 course at a time until I made it back. I worked my way back through 7 more years of undergraduate school to finally get my bachelor's in occupational therapy. I wanted to, since I could no longer go into the military and I no longer had my dreams were crushed for being a military officer, and being in the business corps, I knew that I needed to do something. I needed to touch people, and I needed to reach out in another way. I needed to go and do the same type of career that helped me to get back on my feet. And so I majored in occupational therapy, was president of my class. But see, this wasn't an easy task. It wasn't easy because every day I had to study and I had to work 3 to 5 times harder than I used to because my mind would not hold information. So I spent days and nights and hours in the library rereading material, writing material, recording material, everything that I needed to do. I connected with student support services at Chicago State, and they helped me as well. And I continued to work my way up. Finally, I ended up making it into the occupational therapy program, and with that continuous thought of having to work in my mind, I made it and I graduated top of my class. But I didn't stop there. I said, well, if I can do this, I connected with the one scripture that I've always been able to remember, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I went on and got accepted to Columbia University in New York City. And I majored in a dual master's degree. And I finished with a master's in public health and a master's in occupational therapy. And to the people's surprise, and even to my own surprise, and my mother and my sister's surprise, they announced that I had been the first person to ever graduate with a dual master's degree from the College of Physicians and Surgeons and the School of Public Health at simultaneously receiving my master's. Oh, wow. If I can do that, I can go a little further. Why not get a terminal degree? And I went back, while I simultaneously worked as an occupational therapist, I went back and finished school and went to Virginia Commonwealth University and finished my PhD. Now I am studying, I am doing research, and I'm funded doing disparity research for racial and ethnic minorities with traumatic brain injury. TRiO did that for me, guys. We're bound, instilled in me that I had to continue to work hard, that I could not sleep, that I could not slumber, that if I wanted to continue to learn, if I wanted to succeed, I was going to have to make learning a lifelong process. And that is what it's become for me. Learning is a lifelong process. And I'm blessed that I'm here today to be able to speak to you and let you know my story, that God has continued to work with me and has molded me to be the person that He's wanted me to be. And so now I'm reaching back. There's 86% white females in my field, and I'm the only African American professor in the whole department. And so it is incumbent upon me to reach back and to do more to help bring other individuals up that might have been less fortunate, so that they can see the opportunities. The opportunities of being an occupational therapist. It's a great job, a great outlook, a great career. And the opportunity to know that you can go further with research, you can do more. And not only that, my research is paying off my $118,000 student loans. And so, God has blessed me. And I just want to leave you with one thing in closing. That it's just amazing how I'm here today to be able to speak to you. Because right here in Kansas City, Missouri, is where I had that car accident. Never saw this place before because I was in a coma. Don't ever remember being here. And when they told me, Kelly, you had to come to Kansas City, Missouri to receive this award, I said, isn't that amazing? Thank you.